right, we're going to be looking at the difference between series and parallel circuits. I have two examples of a series and parallel circuit. Let's go over all the pieces of the circuit before we explain the difference. We've got a battery or a voltage source. We have a conductor from the ground side of the battery going to the load. In this case, the load is 2 light bulbs. We have a conductor going from battery positive side to each of the loads. All right. So the first circuit that I'm going to talk about is called parallel. And a parallel circuit, there are 2 separate paths for current. It could be 3 or 4, but there's multiple paths for current. And one of the easiest ways to figure out whether or not your circuit is series or parallel is when you look at the path that electrons are going to flow, all you have to ask yourself is, will the electrons going through bulb 1 also pass through another load, or in this case, bulb 2? If I'm an electron, my goal in life is to go from battery negative to battery positive. That's all I live for. So when I'm coming out of the battery, I'm left with a choice. I have to go through one of 2 bulbs to get back to battery positive. All right? Electrons are lazy. They're not going to do any more work than they have to. So they're going to take the bulb that has the least amount of resistance. And even if these are identical bulbs, there's no such thing as identical. There's a small difference in the amount of resistance. So electron number 1 coming out of the battery is going to take the path of least resistance. Okay? So he goes through bulb 1. He's done his day's work. After going through bulb 1, you're not going to get him to go back around and go through bulb 2 because the electron can go right to battery positive. Okay? As these electrons stack up and bulb 1 heats up, the resistance of bulb 1 goes up, or the resistance of bulb 2 goes up, so bulb 1 may have a lower resistance. So other electrons, as they're lined up here, this is like multiple lines at the lunch line. If lunch line number 2 is really long, you're going to go over lunch line number 1, right? You want your lunch, you want to get out of there. The electrons feel the same way. So the electrons are going to split paths and go through these loads or resistances, and once they make it to the other side, they're done. You're not going to get them to go back through the other load or resistance. Now, so we can understand parallel a little bit better, let's take a look at series. So I have a series circuit down here. You can see we got a battery or voltage source. We've got a conductor from the ground side of the battery to the loads. In this case, we have 2 more light bulbs. And we'll go bulb 1, bulb number 2, and we'll take a look at the current flow through this series circuit. So you're an electron and you've come out of the battery. Your goal in life is to make it back to battery positive. You're going to have to go through bulb 1. So you do some work. You go through bulb 1 and help light bulb number 1 up. There's no way to make it to battery positive unless you go through bulb 2. These are 2 loads that are in series. Electrons going through bulb 2 have to go through bulb 1 first, and that's what makes this circuit a series circuit. Okay? The parallel circuit, any electrons that went through bulb 2 or bulb 1 were going right to the battery. They were not going back through another load in the circuit. But in a series circuit, there are multiple loads, and the electrons have to pass through each load.